What's up, y'all? In the last couple years, as many of you know, I've installed 2 different turbo kits on a BRZ and an FRS. If you're familiar with these cars at all, you know that they're generally the same vehicle. Now, one of these turbo kits was extremely painless and a full instructional guide on how to do it. And the other one was, well, not that, because there was no guide on how to do it, and I pieced together everything on my own. So we're breaking down this video into 5 different sections here. The kit components, install difficulty, turbo responsiveness, overall drivability, and the final verdict of each kit. Now, as you can see, the Blueberry is right next to me because I daily drive it every day. However, the FRS with the HKS turbo kit, it's not here for this video in particular, but I will include some clips and everything of the install process and the drivability of when we went to go review that car here in this video. So if you want to check out the full review or install process, I will put a link down in the description below for those videos. The only thing is, neither of these cars have been on a dyno because they have both been street driven. However, this is a real world comparison. This isn't some dyno comparison. I'm not gonna have big charts up telling you which car did what, because at the end of the day, you can have the same car on 2 different dynos and they can read completely different numbers. So the whole idea of comparing dyno numbers to dyno numbers is kind of irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. However, the biggest thing here would be that, well, the rate at which the turbos spool up, because they are quite different sizes in turbos between each kit. That doesn't necessarily mean that one kit is better than the other because one spools up faster than the other. It mainly boils down to, honestly, the size of the intercooler and the size of the turbo. Now, as you probably suspect, I have behind me my turbocharged BRZ. This is the one that I installed the full Blown Motorsports kit in. It is a custom full Blown Motorsports kit such that, well, we got a different turbo kit. I got a different blow-off valve and waste state set up for it. It's not the original off-the-shelf full-blown Motorsports kit that you can buy off their website. I wanted to do it my own way, and this is what I came up with. However, I really liked the full-blown Motorsports piping setup. So to make it short and sweet, if you didn't watch the other videos that I have on this car, I basically, over the last couple of years, bought several brand new in-the-box piping kits, one hot side, one cold side, and I sourced my turbo from a local turbo manufacturer known as Boost Lab. They do a lot of turbo rebuilds, and they also have their own line of turbos, which is freaking awesome. They're great guys. I highly suggest you go check them out if you haven't already, because the turbo I got from them is freaking incredible. It sounds awesome, and it just fits the bill. Now, in the automotive world, there are 3 things that determine a build. You only get to pick 2, and that is good, fast, or cheap. You can only have 2. Now, with all that said, I did go the cheaper route, but the slower route, because I spent a lot of time collecting the parts and finding the deals on the parts I wanted, and but I got relatively good quality parts in that time. However, the car also is not very fast because it is, at the end of the day, 100% stock BRZ with a turbo literally thrown onto it. Now, the pros to that are obviously, well, I saved a lot of money by doing it that way. However, the cons would be, it took a long time to get there, but I was very patient with it. I wasn't in a rush to turbo the vehicle because this is my daily driver and I need it to be reliable. So therefore, I wanted to do it with the best way possible, which unfortunately it took a little bit of time just so I could save myself actually a couple $1,000s, which is really nice. Also, I installed it myself, which again, that took time. It wasn't a matter of giving it to somebody else and paying somebody else. Again, we can only pick 2 here. Good, fast, and cheap. There's some gray areas here and there, but you kind of get the picture, I'm sure. However, the HKS kit was super clean and very nicely laid out, super detailed instructions. Everything down to the zip tie and metal wire ties were in the kit that you needed. However, that's not to say that the full-blown Motorsports complete kit wouldn't have that same stuff. To be honest, I'm not totally sure if they would go down as far to the wire ties and heat shrink and heat wrap that you would need, but I will say it's not that hard to get after the fact. It's just not something you want to worry about as you're driving down the road trying to daily drive your car, because God forbid you're going down the road and you melt a wire. It's not something you really want to risk, especially on a turbo car that isn't supposed to really have a turbo from the factory. If you think about it, this car is a 12.5 to 1 compression engine on 93 pump gas. That's kind of strung out as it is. Go ahead and add a turbo to the equation, you're really throwing fuel to the fire. Now with the HKS kit, you get a beautiful HKS turbo. I'll go ahead and put the turbo specs up here for you. I did this in a previous video where I compared my turbo against the HKS turbo kit pretty much straight up. But again, the HKS kit even included where to cut on the metal, what to do with the extra plastic on your fan shrouds. You could retain the factory fan shrouds on the HKS kit, whereas these, they actually want you to replace the fans. There's just a few pros and cons. I actually ended up keeping my fans, and I took out a lot of plastic material on the fan shrouds. So in general, it was just a lot more work. And also, as you can see here, the HKS branding was just absolutely perfect. The turbo fit perfectly. It was clocked just right. There was no guessing as far as oil lines or coolant lines. Everything was just, like I said, it was very detailed, very thoughtfully laid out in the directions. So HKS, if you guys happen to come across this video, very, very nice work. I applaud you guys. At the same time, they have years, if not decades, of experience building turbo kits for factory vehicles. So in terms of parts, the HKS turbo kit was just very tidy, very nicely laid out. All the parts fit perfectly. It's all good quality stuff. However, the full Blown Motorsports kit, well, like I said, mine was custom, so I wanted to use a few different parts. I'm sure the factory one, which included, I believe it had the option at least for a precision blow-off valve as well as a precision wastegate, which were 38mm. I opted for the Pulsar stuff because I know plenty of people that are running the Pulsar wastegate and blow-off valves, making a lot more power than this car will ever put down, and they are literally racing their car. So however, the turbo was a nice little extra bit because I wasn't planning on going with something quite this large. This is a 55mm turbo. It is essentially a G30 660 turbo, so it's capable of over 600 horsepower, which I don't know if I'll ever push this car that hard, because anything over about 450 horsepower, I'm probably going to be needing a different transmission and rear end for it, which is, well, a lot more than I really want to put this car through, although it's not totally out of the question. We'll see what the coming days have for us. Which leads me to my next point as to why you should like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can afford to do fun stuff like that. I have so much knowledge with modifying cars and building cars and just doing everything myself that the only thing I'm really lacking here is the funds to do what I want and make videos of it, because I'm a one-man show. We have a one-man wrecking crew here. I do all my own video editing, I do all my own engine builds, car builds, tuning, paint, body work, pretty much everything, you name it. So if you want one channel that does it all, hopefully this will be it for you guys. So please do me a huge favor, hit the subscribe button. I greatly appreciate y'all. So the number 2 point I've kind of already touched on here, but basically I think you get the idea. The HKS kit was very, very nicely laid out. All the instructions were very straightforward. This one, however, because I bought it all secondhand, not a single instruction was to be found. I literally went off of pictures, and I even messed up once and cut a pipe that I wasn't supposed to. However, we made it work at the expense of my windshield washer reservoir. Yeah. Now, the only thing that really threw up a red flag for me on the HKS kit that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I guess, was the fact that I had to get out a cutting tool and cut away some of the metal on this piece here. Actually, it was right in here. On this piece here, I actually bent it upwards. There was nothing that said, or no clear instructions as far as the full Blown Motorsports kit itself goes, that said I had to do that. However, as you can see, you can't really tell, but I just bent it up anyways, just so I could fit the metal through without any kind of rubbing or anything like that in the future. As far as fitment going to the front of the car, honestly, the full Blown Motorsports kit I think fits better. However, the HKS was much more stable, let's say. I did also end up drilling out 2 holes in my front cross member, but again, not a big deal because, well, it was just part of it. If you want to modify something, sometimes you have to modify the OEM stuff to make it fit. It's in the nature of things. This kit, in all honesty, is, well, kind of a serious setup, because the beauty of it is that in the future, if I want to upgrade anything, it's very, very capable of it. I would go as far as pushing this exact piping, intercooler, exhaust manifold setup to well over 600 horsepower. And it really shows at the low power level that I'm making now that it would be way happier at a lot more power, because I think the sweet spot would be about 400 horsepower, which we're not gonna do until we at least get some E85 in the car and I'm ready to say goodbye to the motor, because at 400 horsepower, you're kind of really pushing your luck on these cars, especially with the motor. Transmission would probably hold it, the rear axles might not like it, but We get into that with another video. If you guys want to check that out, I'll put a link here for you. All in all, putting together your own custom turbo kit using existing piping even is not for the faint of heart. It's not for somebody who's never done this before. It's going to take a lot of work. So just be wary of that, be very mindful of it, because it's going to kick your ass more than likely. Now, in case you're wondering about the turbo response and driving feel of each kit, honestly, I would go as far to say, well, there's two major differences between the two kits which I've installed that ultimately determine this. And number one, we'll go with the turbo, because the turbo which I have picked from my build is a little bit bigger than the turbo which comes with the HKS build. And while going into too much detail, essentially this turbo is about 1 to 2 millimeters larger depending on which measurement you look at. Also, the AR housing of the exhaust side is larger. To add, this turbo is rated for 660 horsepower, whereas the HKS turbo is rated to about 4 to 450 horsepower. Now that is a massive difference for two turbos that are relatively similar in size. Also, the biggest difference between the two, which you'll see here in a second and probably caught in the very beginning of this video, is the wastegate. The wastegate in my car is externally dumped, meaning it doesn't recirculate back into the exhaust. Whereas the HKS kit is actually internally wastegated, and it just gets dumped right into the exhaust and comes out the back with the rest of the exhaust. My kit, when the wastegate opens up, it's like all hell is breaking loose. And to be honest, I kind of love that. Personally, I like the term speak softly, carry a big stick. So the car is nice and toned down low and at idle and at low boost. And as soon as it opens up to full throttle, open wastegate, all hell breaks loose and it's just screaming. It's awesome. Just to add into this, personally, I don't like my car sounding obnoxious. And I don't think that an externally wastegated open dump setup is obnoxious. Maybe to an extent it can be. I think it's freaking awesome that in the front of the car, all you hear is the turbo whistling away and that open dump screaming from the front of the car. And then in the back, all you hear is the exhaust. It's pretty freaking rad, I'm not gonna lie. And moving on to my fifth point, and that's going to be the drivability of each of these cars. Now, in all honesty, both cars drive pretty much the same. When you're out of boost, it doesn't really matter. They drive like factory cars. Now, I will admit that my car is still on pump gas and the FRS is on E85. Now with the 85, there's quite a bit more response from the turbo spool up, just because it's a, well, cooler burning fuel, I guess you could say. And because of that, it's definitely going to cause the turbo to spool up a little bit quicker. And typically with these motors, you don't really want to be in like 5th or 6th gear even, trying to build like 15 PSI at 2,500 RPM. It's not good for the motors. You're trying to create too much power down low, and ultimately that could end up spinning a rod bearing or ringland failure. Typically a spun rod bearing first, because it is a lot of load on the top of the piston pushing down for a longer period of time due to the slower stroke of the engine. I will say, if you're going to turbocharge your car, I can't recommend E85 or flex fuel enough. The whole reason that I have not put E85 in my car, well, mostly because of money, but also I just want to stop at the gas station on my way home. I don't really want to go out of my way just to put E85 in the car. It's more time out of my day, and time is very valuable for me right now. So, but luckily you can still drive the car on pump gas. I am only on about 7 PSI, 7.5 PSI. So it's not the end of the world. I still get all the cool sounds and about 120 more horsepower out of the car. And if you want a better explanation as to why this car with a 600 horsepower turbo doesn't spool substantially slower than my buddy's FRS with a 450 horsepower turbo, go ahead and check out the video. I'll post it up here for you guys. I pretty much go into full detail on the turbos themselves, so highly recommend that video if you haven't seen it already. All in all, you don't really sacrifice any kind of drivability comforts on the cars just by turbocharging them. It's literally, you're not drawing power to make power like a supercharger would. It's not any extra load on the engine at idle. You're literally just adding power to the motor that's already there. It's awesome. And actually, in some cases in the past, I recall some vehicles, once adding a turbo to them, would actually make better fuel mileage. Freaking crazy. Really cool if you ask me. But anyways, I can't recommend the turbo enough. Now, one more thing I'm going to add into this point, and that is the fact that, well, I tuned this car. I didn't pay somebody a lot of money to tune my car. I tuned it myself. I am still working on the tune myself. It is a learning process. These cars are not easy to learn to tune with. A lot of the guys that have been tuning these things have been doing it for years now, and they are well versed and have great base maps set up depending on the kit that you decide to go with. However, me personally, this is the first one I tuned, and it is a lot of work. It's really the drivability that's ultimately going to, well, it's kicking my ass right now. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of tweaking, I guess, just to get right. I want the car to drive like it should, like a factory car would. And of course, my final verdict and what I really think you should go with as far as this goes. If you guys want like an end-all answer, here it is. If you've never installed a turbo kit on a car before, and this is your first time really doing any kind of work like this, modifying vehicles, if this is still your daily driver, you just want to cut and dry, spend the extra bit of money, get the HKS kit. Because the full-blown motorsports kit is truly meant for somebody who's planning to, well, build onto it and develop their car. Like eventually I would like to turn the boost up in this. I would like to switch over to E85. HKS kit, you can do the same thing, but you're really limited. There's not many options you can do with it. It is an internally waste-stated turbo, meaning it's very difficult to bump up your wastegate pressure. Let's say the blow-off valve is non-existent in it, so you're really kind of limited on what you can do for boost without a blow-off valve. If you wanted to turn up the boost and start making high horsepower on it, you would definitely want to install a blow-off valve into that turbo kit. This one here is pretty much ready to go for 600 plus horsepower, I would say. Full-blown Motorsports on their website actually says that you can make 700 horsepower out of this intercooler kit. 700, might even be 600. It's a lot more than I'm wanting to do right now with this car on a stock motor. With that said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I'm gonna go get some pizza right now. We're gonna enjoy some dinner with the family. I'm gonna go enjoy the car. But I hope you guys got something out of this. If you did, please make sure you hit the like and don't forget to subscribe. Check out the rest of the channel. I greatly appreciate every single one of you. We'll see y'all next time.
This is what you're waiting for. I think we're ready to ride.